everybody. Welcome to TraderMerlin Show. It is your Thursday edition of Very Special Thursdays. You guys know the Ambassador of Opportunity. I've actually created that name many, many moons ago. This is for Mr. John O'Donnell, who was working with me for many years over at Online Trading Academy and on Power Trading Radio as a co-host for almost a decade. Now he's left sunny California, or I should say smoky California. For those of you who are following the news, we had some pretty major fires happen last night because of these crazy winds we have, so everybody be safe out there. But John has decided to move across country. He's now on the East Coast, but still doing a lot with the financial space and talking about markets. So without further ado, I'm just going to go right to him. Mr. Ambassador of Opportunity, John O'Donnell. How you doing, my friend?
Yo, Merlin, what's up?
Another day in sunny California. We had some Santa Ana winds last night with some pretty significant fires, and yeah, it's...
Believe it or not, I follow your weather and news. Even on the East Coast, I'm on a streaming system that gives me news.
Nice.
Like I get your CBS News, your California-produced CBS News. So I still get I get my fix of smoke and Santa Anas and almost every day.
Well, I had to be careful. I made the mistake of saying there was so much smoke and ash at my house last night. I made the mistake of telling my friend and said, "Man, I was really sucking some ash this morning." And if you don't enunciate that properly, you really could find yourself in some trouble.
I got it.
Good, John. Well, tell me what you've been up to. I know you moved out there in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, I'm in North Carolina, and I'm closer to my family out here, and it's been a cultural adjustment. I spent 42 years in California, so it's been a real cultural adjustment for me. I mean, it's like, adjustment number 3.
Yeah.
And on top of the pandemic, plus the other 2, and so it's still an adjustment. There's no question about it. But it's nice out here. This is a happening metropolitan area. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the Charlotte area, and I know I'm going to get good basketball out here because I can choose between North Carolina and Duke. So, I still bleed Mizzou black and gold, but I even pick up their games. So
nice.
I'm in love with streaming video services. I seem to get whatever sports fix I want.
I like it. Well, I look forward to visiting you when I'm out there. I'm sure at some point I'll come out and then say hi.
I hope you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go into macro markets. As you guys may have seen the literature I posted on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't know. I'm trying to keep up with these damn social media places. But it was macro market economics with John O'Donnell was kind of the topic we went into. And the reason I kind of steered it that way is we had some questions from viewers. And I'll start off with the first one, which I think many of our viewers might have thoughts on, and I would love to get everybody's input as we progress through this discussion because at this point it is all hypothetical. This one comes from Tim. Tim says, what do you think the impact of the vaccine will have on the markets? Now, as everybody knows, we have many different pharmaceutical companies rushing to get their vaccine to market. And there's this perception that, man, if we just get a vaccine, then everything goes away. There are no more problems whatsoever. And I certainly disagree with that. But I'll let you go to your view on the market impact from this vaccine.
Well, boy, that's a tough question, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, there's so many variables that could impact the resistance. First of all, not only the production of the vaccine, the distribution channels of the vaccine are going to be absolutely huge. We haven't really done something like this, although they're using the existing infrastructure that's been around for the flu virus and various other vaccines.
Yep.
But who knows? If we're going to talk about the economic impact of the markets, remember I look at the world through the Austrian economic perspective, which is not the Keynesian perspective. And the definition of the Austrian definition of economics is the study of human action. So you have to answer the question, what is the public's human action response going to be toward the vaccine? Yep. I think it's safe to say there's going to be a group of people, they're going to champion it, and are going to be early adopters, and they're going to go to their local distribution point, be it a pharmacy or a doctor or a hospital or somewhere, or their primary care physician, and they're going to take the vaccine. And there'll probably be a line around the block of those people. There's going to be another group that's going to resist even taking the vaccine? Or they're going to be very hesitant until what, 6 months, a year of usage and critique takes place, and then they're going to make a. So the markets are going to be impacted by the actors acting out in their own what perceived to be economic best interest. If you believe the vaccine is in your best economic and health interest, you'll be probably, if it's available, an early adopter, as early as your group will allow you to be. If you're not, they're going to be a subset of people in this country, and we can only guess what the percentage might be, that are going nothing to do with the vaccine.
Yeah, let me ask our audience a poll here, because I agree. I'm on Brendan's camp here. Just simple yes or no. If there is, Pfizer, Moderna, who cares what the company is, comes out with a vaccine that's FDA approved, and you're all told you can go get this. I'm just curious. Out of we've only got 50 people here today, so hopefully we get 50 responses. Just how many of you would get the vaccine, and how many of you would not? Just say simple yes or no. I'm curious to see what that response is. And before, as you guys type this in, I'll kind of go through my thing. I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine the other day, and he says, I'm getting it immediately. I'll be the first one in line to get that thing. And I was like, okay, I get it, why you'd want it, because maybe you're a little bit older, maybe more susceptible to it. But remember, we didn't find out that cigarette smoking was dangerous for like 10, 15, 20 years after cigarettes were around. I mean, John, to me, this has been rushed through, this vaccine, because this pandemic emergency phobia we built for something that has a 1% mortality rate. And also, I just question, how many other health issues are you going to get from this vaccine just so you can say you got the vaccine and you won't get this virus, which isn't, cancer's far worse. There's so many different things that are worse than this vaccine, yet, let's see, most of it looks about 50-50 right now. I got yeses and nos across the board. More yeses, I think.
Count them up. More yeses than nos?
I got one. Oh, man, I gotta do a tally here, but are you going to...
Let's ask one more question to see how they respond to it. If you got 50, ask them, how many are immediately, if possible, going to get the vaccine, or how many are going to defer getting the vaccine down the road X months,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I can't tally them up. There's too many coming through. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems a little bit too scary for me. And it's interesting because we could make the argument that they could force us to do this. So another good, I guess the question we have to ask ourselves is, if this vaccine does come to market, there's certainly as many of you who are like, you know what, I'm going to go get it. And then that's great. That's your choice, and you should be able to have that choice. Where it gets interesting is, do you think we get to a point where they'll say something like, okay, well, you can't have a bank account with your local bank unless you have a proof that you've been vaccinated, or you cannot fly on an airplane, or you cannot get a driver's license if you don't. I mean, do you ever think we'll get to that point for this?
It's certainly possible. Remember, we may have a government now that, remember the Democratic leadership was really pushing heavy for lockdowns and control. And, the lockdowns have been terrible for economics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely terrible. Well, what if there's a mandate for a vaccine, and that's going to create, this particular government, now, I don't want to get into the politics, but Trump was a big advocate of no lockdowns, open the schools, and we got a vaccine coming, and he kind of sold us, or attempted to sell us, although the end result didn't work too well in this particular case, that the vaccine was coming, and it has been remarkable that it's been developed this quickly and get through the FDA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been done, and it's been done by capitalism, by the way. It's been done by the private sector with the support of government funding. But the intellectual property is owned by the companies that did the pharmacy work. And it was a public-private partnership initiative that got it done in record time. I don't know. I mean, who's to say? Could it get to that? It would probably come from the governor. I don't think the executive branch of the federal government has the power to mandate it, and it's state rule. And I would look to some states may take this on, especially where they're hot spots,
Mm-hmm.
and they may mandate it. Like everybody needs, like California. California is going through a tremendous hotspot,
Yeah.
especially in Los Angeles right now. And that governor is a control freak. He wouldn't mind locking everything down and mandating everybody get in line for a vaccine. I mean, I think he'd do it in a heartbeat if he had the opportunity.
Yeah, and this is the big unknown, and for me, in a perfect world, it would come down to choice. So businesses could have the choice to remain open, and consumers could have the choice to go to those businesses or not to go to those businesses. And you mentioned California. I do trivia usually on Tuesday nights, and the owner of the bar that I go do trivia at, it's outdoor patio and everything, and he says, I've got friends in Corona Del Mar, and they're saying that even outdoor seating in CDM, which has been open and open in many places, that's getting the hard slap shut down from Gavin Newsom. And you're right, they're shutting things down aggressively, which, as you guys heard Jerome Powell mention in yesterday's conference over the CARES Act, or testimony in the CARES Act, that his big concern is down the road that this choking off of the economy by shutdowns could have lasting and dramatic impacts going forward. And I think that that's part of all of this. Now, the question comes back to the COVID vaccine says, if we get the vaccine, I saw a gentleman in here post that I will take it if my employer mandates it. Okay, I could see that happening too. There will be certain people, I'm sure, that will make it mandatory. And it's kind of, to me, it kind of flies in the face of the freedoms that you have, is your ability to choose where to get a vaccine. Now, let me refresh this here a little bit. There's also a talk about paying $1,500 in stimulus if you get the vaccine. Now that might change my perspective on it just a little bit. $1,500, that's a start, but I would still wait probably 6 months or a year to watch the people who got it first, grow their third legs or some appendage come off their forehead or something like that. I don't know. I'm just too freaked out about medicine to think that this is.
Merlin, I mean, I assume you know. Did you take the polio vaccine?
I did take the polio vaccine, which had been tested for many years before I got it.
Do you get a flu shot every flu season?
Hell friggin' no. Are you kidding me? No.
Okay.
I'll get the flu.
There are millions of people that do.
I know.
Okay. And so my personal perspective is I'm going to take the vaccine. But I'm in an age category where I'm not, quote unquote, according to the demographics of this pandemic, I'm at quote on high risk because of my age.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to play with it. I'm not going to be the first in line though. I'm going to let them. I'm going to let the firemen and the nurses and the doctors go through the gauntlet first. But that's going to be mandated by government anyway.
Right.
Because I'm down the road. I mean, I'm not in a nursing home or.
So riddle me this, John. Riddle me this. We've had the flu, and I don't know how long the flu has been a major issue. I mean, we all get it. It seems like every year we'll come down with a case of the flu. Fine, it is what it is. And we still don't have a vaccine for the flu. And the reason I say that is because many people get a flu shot. Yet I know so many people who get a flu shot, and many times they feel like they get the worst flu they've ever had in their lives after they get this shot. So how is it that in under a year we've created a 94% effective vaccine for a disease that has just started, which has the same basic characteristics as the flu?
I don't know. You'd have to ask a biological chemist that question. I don't understand. I have not gone into the weeds to study the characteristics that make these vaccines work. So that the body produces antibodies, the very specific antibodies to this specific flu. But I don't know. But at some point in time, you have to trust somebody. And what's going to be the economic impact? I don't think it's discernible. I don't think you can tell. It's too early to tell. I mean, I'd like to be hopeful and that this is a magic bullet and it works perfectly and millions of lives are saved. I think it would be beautiful. It's going to build in a certain group of the population confidence. And another percentage of the population, it's going to continue to be conspiracy theories that will be thrown out, that this is some kind of a conspiracy theory.
They're implanting a chip in you with the vaccine, that type of thing.
Oh, right. And so it's going to be, it's going to be a hell of a distribution problem. I mean,
Yeah.
we still got to figure out if they can do this distribution program.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a walk in the park.
Then
it's going to be, I'm sure that will be politicized.
Of course.
If you have certain political connections, and if you want the flu shot, you'll be able to get it, and you'll be able to go to the front of the line. And then there's going to be some angst about that, and CNN will write about that ad nauseum.
Yeah, I think the part that scares me out of all this is you have these drug companies, they're petitioning for rapid approval of all these drugs, and I'm on the side going, hey, there's a reason we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 drug approval by the FDA to make sure that you watch these medicine commercials and you're like, okay, I'm taking, I don't know, Propecia or something to help with my stomach problems, and then at the very end it's like, you'll feel so much better with this Propecia drug. And then at the end, there's some little voice in the background going, you may experience rectal bleeding, eyes bleeding, vomiting, diarrhea, blood coming out of your ears, hair loss, and possible death. You're like, but my stomach doesn't hurt anymore. I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying the flu. All right. So we went on to the theoretical side. I agree with, there was two in here. I think Tom and Big Ed were both saying that they feel that this is priced in. Here's how you can tell the danger of the impact of this vaccine. It is the most talked about topic when CNBC or Fox or Bloomberg gets on the air. It's like, what moved the markets today? Today, markets sold off. Why? Because Pfizer was talking about distribution problems with their vaccine, so the market sold off. I mean, this is what's really weird, is it's all hinging on this drug. And I do believe that it's priced into the market, overly priced into the market. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, for which sector of the economy? There are certain sectors of the economy, like Zoom and the work-at-home trade, where this pandemic has been extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
Adobe, Zoom, various other cloud companies have seen spectacular growth, certain categories. There have been other categories of the economy, like restaurants, bars, movie theaters, trading schools, where occupancy has been barred, and it has been not good at all on the fundamental economics of that sector. So I don't know. Which segment of the economy are we talking about? What I think is a more interesting conversation, I think we can all agree the pandemic at one day is going to go away. It's not going to be here forever. We don't know how long it's going to be here, but I don't think the vaccine is going to be the magic bullet. But it is certainly, for a certain segment of the population, is going to build a lot of confidence. Perhaps the movie theaters and the bars and the restaurants can reopen, in that environment if the confidence comes back. But that means the people that feel confident about going out in public and engaging and doing something physically social have the confidence to go back into that environment. Right now, with or without the shutdown, there's a lot of people that are staying close to home. They're social distancing, and they're not going to ball games. They're not going to watch the Lakers. They're not going. Think about, when the panic goes away, will it help the Lakers? Sure, you can start filling those stadiums up
absolutely,
again, and all the vendors to the Lakers and the Clippers and the Rams, etc. But when's that coming back? I watched a lot of college football over the Thanksgiving, football and basketball. It's killing universities.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can't host classes. It's hurting the professors. Some of the professors are aged. They don't want to be in a classroom with 100 students.
Right.
God knows what they did last weekend. Football. I mean, football I think at some Big Ten universities is a $5 billion industry. Yeah. And it subsidizes and supports all the other sports at the university. It's the only sport that really makes money. And I don't see people drinking beer and eating popcorn at the Ohio State games. You?
No. I mean, I saw the. I watched the football game on Monday.
Some sectors of the economy are going to be, when we get rid of the pandemic trade and we go back to some semblance of normal, and your guess is as good as mine as to when that may be. I don't know about you, but I don't see this pandemic just completely drying up in
No.
2021. Do you?
No, I don't. And I want to. There was a comment that came through to TraderMerlin, so I'll get this one. The comment was that this is just that COVID is just as deadly as the flu. Not true. If we go back to, if you look at the annual number of deaths of the flu in the United States, so I'm sorry for the Canadians and other European. I just looked at the numbers for the U.S. At its peak, you're looking at about 61,000 deaths from the common flu in the United States. Now, so far it's been about a year, right? You could say we started in December. Here we are beginning of December. That's when it really started to become an issue here in the States. Yeah. In about 1 year's time, as of today, according to the CDC, there's been 274,000 deaths because of COVID. So you could give it almost a 5x more lethal.
However, Merlin, you need to put an asterisk next to that COVID number because there were many people that died, God knows how many, that died from complications of the pandemic, but they basically had a heart attack or their really underlying health deficiency was diabetes. And in the spirit of brevity, they just put on the death certificate, pandemic COVID-19, when in fact it played a role, but it wasn't the primary cause. It wasn't causality.
Yeah, I just wanted to show that because it is clearly more. It has more deaths claimed than the common flu, so it's not the same. But I remember when this first came out, I watched the movie. I think it was called Outbreak, where whatever the disease was had a 100% mortality rate. Okay, I have a completely different opinion if it was 100% fatality rate if you caught COVID. But that's where we're at right now with the numbers. 1 year in the books, 274 is about the number. So. Let's see. Let's move on from this one. I think that as far as it being priced in, I think it is. I think it's what's driving the market because it's giving people hope that if we actually get the vaccine and there's no complications, it's now everyone gets it, then everything goes back to normal. And when you have trillions of dollars pushed into the economy from the Fed and our government, then all of a sudden our markets are going to be ripping to all-time highs and higher and higher and higher and higher. So we'll see how that all pans out. Right now it's looking rather optimistic. At least the equity markets are. What was the second question? Let me go to this. I want to make sure we get to as many as we can. I thought this was a good one. I messed up on my font, so apologize for that. This is about the Biden pick to have Janet Yellen as the Secretary Treasury Secretary. Treasury Secretary. I don't know, I got dyslexia today. That's from Kevin. John, do you think Janet Yellen is a good choice for Treasury Secretary? That's a pretty big influential market macro piece, is it not?
Absolutely. And in combination with Powell, it's going to be like frickin' frack, man. I mean, they're going to be printing money till they're going to run them printing presses overtime. And no, she knows how to print money. I mean, she learned at the Fed, and she's pro quantitative easing. The government's really going to open up the spigots after the inaugural, and I think those two are going to work overtime. And we're going to have cheap credit on steroids squared, I think, in 21.
Yeah, I'm actually more of a Janet Yellen fan than a Mnuchin fan, so I think it's a good pick. Why not? I think she did a heck of a job under the circumstances during her administration, so I think that's a decent one.
Remember, what the unknown here is, Merlin, is she's going to take her orders this time. I mean, she was the chairman of the Fed. She was kind of the boss, lead to have the overriding vote. Now she's got a boss. It's called President Biden. And what we don't know if Biden is a hard leftist or if Biden is going to be a centrist. Mm-hmm. And we don't know that yet. I mean, he's given, there's never really been any interviews or critique by the press of this guy. And we don't know how he's going to behave. Now, if he's in his mind, if he's a one-term president, he can really cut loose with the printing of money. I mean, he can really rip it because he doesn't, have to stand for re-election in destroying the purchasing power of the currency. But, we don't know how this guy is really going to govern, do we? I mean, can anybody really put our finger on the pulse of what he stands for? Is he a centrist or is he a hardcore leftist?
Well, that's still some of the unknown pieces. I think what you're starting to see already is there's more of a panel of advisors around him that will help him make those decisions, as opposed to one just saying, I will make the decision. So I think that's going to be something that takes the market a while to get used to, is having more of a, I don't want to say, it's a dictatorship's not the word I'm looking for, but there's a term for when you have an authoritarian, I believe it is, where you have one individual who says, I'm calling the shots, and other people might tell me stuff, but I'm doing what I want to do, to something a little bit more, listening to people around him. And I think that was a good thing for the markets for the past 4 years, right? You knew what you were getting. Here's a statement. Here's what happens. And now it might be a little bit more fuzzy with regards to it. And you're right. I think we have to wait and see what exactly his administration is going to do, how they pan out. We do know that there's certain things they've already said they're going to be backing. We talked about cannabis. We talked about clean energy. Those are the easy things to figure out. But as far as the other parts of the market, that's going to take some time to figure out.
Well, he's going to have a heck of a time getting through many of his programs if these, if the Republicans control the Senate, the votes in the Senate, which is going to come down to this January vote in Georgia. If we have a situation where the Democrats control Congress, the presidency, and the Senate, then he'll get almost everything he wants. I mean, he'll have like a blank check. I mean, check all the boxes, get whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
He'll probably lean more to the left in that environment because he'll have all the power. He won't have any resistance from the Republicans, the GOP.
Yeah.
However, if the GOP stands firm, we may be in for gridlock, Merlin. And gridlock has historically been pretty good for markets.
Yep, that it has.
And if we go back, and I think there's a good chance that the GOP is going to stand up and keep control of the Senate. Mitch McConnell's not going to go away. And it looks pretty strong. And we'll see what happens. But Pelosi's probably going to have a lot less power going forward. And we'll see how this plays out. But I'm voting for gridlock, if you want to know the truth. I'm voting. I like check and balance.
Yeah, I do. I like check and balance, but I also like if there's a lot of things that could go through both Democrat and Republican initiated policies, but the other side will just hold it up because the other side came up with the idea. Like, I would love to see an amicable, we're saying, that's a great idea. It's good for America, not just good for my party or my constituents only. And unfortunately, I don't think we'll see much of that. I'll ask this question. I hate going down the politics route, guys. This is not meant to be a politics show. Jerry says, do you think that Trump has a chance in the Supreme Court to overturn his fraud of an election?
No.
I don't either. Look,
no, I think that's done. Stick a fork in it and move on.
I agree.
And I think what he's doing right now is causing more harm than good. If you lose complete confidence in the democratic system, I mean, what do you want?
Yeah.
More authoritarianism? I mean, give me a break. I mean,
yeah.
No. I mean, first of all, I don't doubt that there was fraud in the election. The real question is how much fraud. Was there enough indiscretion and fraud that would be enough votes? I mean, allegedly, Biden got 80 million votes. I mean, come on.
But you could make the argument, John, and I don't think that anybody in this room would disagree with this. If you do, it's fine, but I think we'd all agree. There is absolutely 100% voter fraud. It's on both sides. There's voter fraud in favor of Trump, and there was voter fraud in favor of Biden. Let's call it a wash, move on. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I don't doubt that. I mean, I remember when Kennedy was elected president, and the mafia in Chicago put him in office. I mean, if they didn't commit the fraud that they committed, we wouldn't have had JFK, who was a great president.
A little before my time, but from what I've learned, absolutely yes. All right, let's move on from the...
How many times have you heard of a Democrat cutting taxes 25%? That's what JFK did.
Well, it's not just about taxes, John. If you look at market performance, historically, it performs better under Democrat. Just saying.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that.
All right, let's move on from politics because it could start to get ugly, and I don't want anybody making enemies here in the chat because they view one side or the other. You watched the the show I did the other day on Bitcoin, and you have been much more vocal than I ever thought you would be with regards to Bitcoin. What's your take on the current status of it? Because I know you're a gold guy. I mean, you were in the silver reclamation business, so you know precious metals. You've always been kind of a gold bug. You know, you're a timer, but you certainly think long haul gold is the place to be. What's your thoughts on two things: the Bitcoin phenomenon and gold itself?
If Bitcoin didn't take place, remember Bitcoin was rolled out in an economic catastrophe. We're talking about what, 2008, 2009 era when Bitcoin got rolled out? So the free market invented Bitcoin. Government did not create Bitcoin. Therefore, that's very Hayekian. F.A. Hayek, the great Austrian economist who was a #1 student of Ludwig von Mises, was an advocate that there ought to be competition in currencies. Mm-hmm. I believe in competition. The Bitcoin market cap today is what? Let's say approximately 300 billion?
360.
Is that correct?
360.
Okay, 360. The market cap on gold, I went back and checked it before the show started, is $11 trillion. So there's my short answer to the Bitcoin gold phenomenon is there's room for both. Like there's room for multiple fiat currencies. Now, in a perfect world, we Austrians would like to see a fiat currency that is convertible, redeemable into gold at some fixed ratio. So many grams per unit of outstanding. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to get that because central banks and governments want to control the printing press. The reason the governments don't like Bitcoin is they can't really control it.
Right.
You know, but consumers and users of currency should have choice. Now, where a lot of people miss the boat on Bitcoin, and I sent you a white paper on this by the American Institute of Economic Research. I posted it on my Twitter feed, Rainmaker OTA. And I hope you will repost it on your
Sure.
Twitter feed. It is the fact that it is a currency in and of itself. It's designed to be a medium of exchange, but what's attached to it is the fact that you can make settlement peer-to-peer. The only way you can make settlement peer-to-peer in a fiat currency world is if you only deal in the world of cash. I can go to a swap meet, I can take a $10 bill with me, and I can go down and buy $10 worth of goods. It has to go through some intermediary, and that intermediary is controlled by the Federal Reserve System. And so we believe as Austrians in economic choice, freedom, and I like Bitcoin. Now, was I steeped in gold? Yeah, but absolutely, because that's all I knew. You know, you were the one that really turned me on to Bitcoin.
No, thanks.
and I'm very appreciative of that. I kicked myself in the rear end. I have a small, very, very minuscule position in Bitcoin. I should have taken a much larger position, but I didn't, and I kicked myself in the rear end almost every day for that. But so be it. You know, yep. I could also say the same thing about Tesla.
Let me, Rick, there's a question that came through here I want to share, and that was, Brendan said, where was it? Bitcoin going to 250K will rival gold's market cap. Tom, this is the interesting one. He says, if Bitcoin was that many trillion, what would it be? What would the price be per coin? That's very simple math, actually. It'd be roughly 30 times where it's at now, because if you take 11 trillion, divide that by 360 billion, you get a factor. I think it's 30.5. Now, times the current $20,000 price tag of a Bitcoin by 30, and you're looking at about $600,000 a coin, which I'd be given my 9 coins, I'd be happy with that.
Let me share something with you. The real question I get all the time is, I see what's happening with Bitcoin. I hear all the noise of maybe some, various governments and institutions getting involved, furthering its utility and distribution. Should I get involved at this price point? I think it's like, or I can make the same thing. Should I own gold at $18.50 an ounce? You missed the boat when it was nearly 1,000. Remember when Power Trading Radio, you and I were debating whether gold was going to go to $1,000 an ounce. Remember that?
Yep.
And now it's at 1,800. Should I have a position in gold? The answer is you should have a position in both. You should have a small position in Bitcoin. You should have a small position in gold. And by the way, um, gold mining shares market cap today passed $1 trillion.
Woo woo.
So the gold miners market cap is 3 times bigger than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin in the world of monetary affairs, it's a minuscule, it's a rounding error for in the monetary system. But should you have exposure to it, I think your portfolio is delinquent if it doesn't have how big should that position be? Well, that's subjective.
Yeah.
Whatever you consider small. But if in combination Bitcoin and gold represented 5% of your at-risk portfolio, I think that would be quite comfortable in today's world.
Yeah, and everyone's gonna have different risk tolerances. I know that there's others here who are extremely aggressive and have most of their money in cryptos, and that's again a choice that y'all have to make. I don't keep all my assets in crypto. I have a large amount. I mean, we're up to a couple $100,000 now in crypto assets, but going forward, I don't see myself lightening up that basket. I think it's probably going to still continue to move. Now, so you're
By the way, since we're on the Bitcoin topic, I just saw a report on CNBC today that the 2020 tax return form on the front page makes you declare how many Bitcoins you received, you spent, what your basis was, and what your holding period was. And if you don't check the box, if you have had Bitcoin exposure, whether you had a capital gain or not, they want to know what your virtual currency exposure is. And it's going to be, you'll see they're going to be publishing these forms, I guess, in mid-December or so, and released to the public or to the accounting firms. But you're going to see front and center on all IRS forms your Bitcoin exposure, and you've got to report it to the federal government.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Big Eb's like, yeah, okay, I will declare. Look, I don't want any issue with the IRS. Last thing I want to do is get audited. It's such a pain. So I will. It's interesting because here's the tricky part about it. The IRS wants you. So if you bought Bitcoin, and let's say you opened up your Coinbase account and you bought some Bitcoin, and then you went and you decided that you wanted to take that Bitcoin, sell half of it, and buy some Ethereum. And then you sold your Ethereum and you bought some Litecoin or Ripple or Dash or Monero or Zcash, whatever it is. They want they want you to show every single transaction that you made. And keep in mind, guys, when I was building the cryptocurrency class for OTA, I was making hundreds of transactions just to see how the system worked. I'd transfer fractional pieces here and there to see how exactly entering in your private keys worked, and different wallets and different brokerage firms and different accounts. It was crazy. So there's no way I'm going to do that. But what I did keep track of is all the purchases I made into Bitcoin initially. There was a period of time where I was buying $1,200 worth of Bitcoin a week. Just automatic on Coinbase. You can do recurring purchases. And I have all those receipts. And basically my plan is to ultimately bring everything back into one account, get it back into cash, and then pull it back into just Bitcoin and maybe 2 or 3 other cryptocurrencies that I think are great projects. But yeah, you do want to declare it because they'll come down on you. They can now get into Coinbase's database. And I think over a certain amount in the accounts, I think it's 25,000, will be reported to the IRS. My guess is it's all being reported to the IRS. So be careful with that one.
Well, absolutely. And remember, I think the trend going forward, at least for the next 4 years, is going to be if it moves and they can find transparent data, they're going to tax it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're looking for a tax everywhere. And that's the role of big government.
We talked about gold, and obviously gold is a critical piece to these markets. It's been in this weird little channel, and I'll bring up the chart here for the viewers so you can see that one. It's been trending down from that over to almost 2,100 mark, just tiptoed below 1,800 a few days ago, and is now starting another little bounce back up. Who knows if this is the big rally as it starts to go to all-time highs. So what's your take on gold at this point?
I'm bullish.
Bullish?
I mean, but I've been bullish. I got exposed to gold when it was $42 an ounce. I mean, can I not be a long-term bull on it? But is it going to trade? Sure, it's going to, like everything. The inverse of gold is the dollar that it's priced in. And does the dollar fluctuate in purchasing power parity? Absolutely. Regardless of the price of copper, or the price of a home, or the price of labor. Supply and demand is ultimately going to determine all these, but it's going to be supply and demand for dollars and supply and demand for the metal. There's plenty of metal out there.
Yep.
With the above ground stockpiles at over 11 trillion for gold, you can get all the gold you want. There's no shortage of gold. I mean, it's stored in somebody's vault, and if the bid's high enough, it'll come out of that vault. And then when there's a price correction, it'll get replaced. But I'm a long-term bull on gold. But I'd wait for corrections, buy on weakness, add to your position. What I would do is have a plan. How much of your risk capital portfolio would you like exposed to gold? Either through gold derivatives, gold options, physical gold, or gold miners. You have a beautiful mixture of exposures that you can put on. The real key is timing.
Yep.
When's the right time to have a long position in gold? When's the right time to be flat gold? I philosophically have a problem shorting gold. I think it comes from my Austrian economics education. Because I believe what J.P. Morgan said is true. Gold is the only true money. Everything else is a true money substitute.
All right, I like that.
Gold is money.
Yeah. Okay. I had this chart up here. Hopefully you guys are seeing what I was doing with the chart. I put the dollar index on the top, and you guys remember we were talking about that dollar getting below 92, and it looks like it could fall very quickly down to 90, and it has. The last 3.5, 4 days have been pretty ugly for the dollar index. That's on the top chart. Normally when we have the dollar index, dollar getting weak like that, it should be the inverse for gold, and this is kind of a weird conundrum that we find ourselves in right now. You can see back here in June, July, and August, when the dollar was really selling off, gold is rallying aggressively. Both of them have been selling off pretty consistently since late September. No, not one of them is moving to the upside really, which is kind of concerning. My guess is that the dollar will continue on down. You'll start to see some move back up in the gold chart, but that's a disconnect I think we all kind of need to be aware of right now that is not normal. It's generally going to be an inverse relationship, but right now it's they're syncing together.
I have a theory on why gold had that correction, by the way.
Okay, I'm all ears.
My theory is it's related to the pandemic. With 10 or 20 million people unemployed or nervous and uncertain about their economic future, I know that coin dealers, I have some old friends, I originally was a coin dealer, I was in the precious metals reclamation business at one time. I still have friends in that industry that I stay in touch with. The coin shops have been flooded with precious metals. And a lot of people are pulling out their old jewelry, they're pulling out their old gold coins, and they're going to the dealer and getting some cash because they're unsecure about their future income because of the pandemic, because of the shutdowns and all the other challenges that are out there. And I think a lot of gold hit the melting pot this early fall. And that may continue for a while. Yeah.
I mean, people are just scavenging for cash.
They're scavenging for cash. And when you're financially distressed, you sell what has liquidity. And gold always has liquidity somewhere.
Yep.
Always. Now, you may not like the bid you get, but that means you need to go down the street and find another bid.
Yeah, and it's funny because my friend actually sold some coins back, this is probably 6 months ago, and the coin store actually paid her a premium for the gold coins because they had a shortage of gold coins. But that was early in the pandemic. Now I think people are starting to realize that they've tapped their savings and it's getting a little bit slim pickings. Let's get rid of the necklaces. The gold.com is probably booming right now. What else is going on in your world, John? You doing any teaching seminars? I figure you'd be like an emeritus professor at Mises by now. What's going on with your world?
Well, I would love to do that. If they wanted me to come down there and give a few talks, I would love to do that.
You want some football? I mean, Alabama's where it's at, buddy.
Well, they sure are. I don't know if you saw that Bama-Auburn game, but Alabama looks awfully tough to me this year.
They look tough every year.
Yeah, but they just reload. They're really something. I think their quarterback's going to win the Heisman Trophy.
And all two people allowed at the press conference will cheer him on.
Well, there'll be hundreds at Zoom.
Did you watch the Green Bay Packers game on Monday night? I think it was Monday or Sunday night.
No, I don't know.
It was interesting, just to tell you how deep the pandemic piece is. They allowed 500 fans in the stadium. And even the commentators were laughing because there was some lady who was like in front of the stadium speakers to pick, or the stadium microphone to pick up the crowd noise, who must have been just hammered. And she's just screaming, "Go back, go!" It's just losing it. And they started making comments on how, I wish I get the numbers right. I'm sure somebody here will get the numbers for me because I can't remember. But I think they said something like they lose, it's like $100 million they lose because of the COVID and the stadium being shut down. And what was interesting is there's now a growing concern that all of the residences around Lambeau Field might be defaulting on their mortgages or have struggles with their mortgages because during football season, they rent out all their parking spaces and make a killing selling out every Sunday. That's how they pay their mortgages. I'm like, wow, that's some seriously expensive parking. But I mean, it's interesting that simple trickle effect from, okay, we think closing the football stadium, that's the ticket revenue gone, that's the concession revenue gone. Now it's the parking, and that parking impacts the people who own the homes, and it's a crazy domino effect.
Yeah, it ripples down the whole economy. People forget about the suppliers. People forget, Keynesians forget, because they focus on the consumption side of the equation. Austrians focus on the production side of the equation, which means Austrians are focusing on the supply chain.
Yeah.
And when you ripple through the supply chain, I mean, it really compounds the effect. By the way, you ought to get Mark Skousen on your show.
We could do 3 people on Skype, so just you have somebody you want to interview, bring them on. Let's do it.
All right. Or Mark Thornton, and I think it would be good to get some of the Austrians, friends of ours that were on the Power Trading Radio Show, back on your show and get an update on their perspective about some of these questions and thoughts, because they put a lot of thought into it. I mean, I certainly respect
absolutely
a lot of their thoughts, and they're stimulating.
Great comment here from Jerry. He says Alabama can beat my New York Jets right now. The Petaluma Trojan High School football team could beat the Jets right now, and that's where I went to school. But the Jets. I mean, sorry, Jets, Jets. Oh boy, what a rough year it is to be a Jets fan. I'm surprised. I think my team has like 14 players on injured reserve and is still in the playoff hunt. That's pretty incredible. All right, John. Well, I'm glad we got you back on. And now that you're settled and situated, I'm going to be bugging you probably at least once a month. And if you have anybody you want to bring on the program and share with the viewers, I'd love to we could do a panel discussion, however you want to do it. You just got to let me know, and I'm happy to do it.
All right. How much lead time do you need?
Give me just a couple hours. I mean, I like to let the people know who's coming. So I try to build out a calendar.
So you tell me, how much lead time do you need?
Give me a day, because I like to put on the calendar at TraderMerlin.com so I can promote who's coming on and let people know.
Well, I'll give you 2 days. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
Because they may have a busy schedule too.
Just let me know, and I can tell you if you. I try to update the calendar at TraderMerlin.com, although I've been a little bit lazy lately, but I will do my best to keep that updated. I usually book about a week in advance, so we're filling out next week. So.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send a link of our interview today. I'll send it to a couple of my friends in that world and tell them that we're going to be putting out some invites to them. You want to do it between now and Christmas? Or you want to wait till after?
Whenever you want. I'm taking the last week off of the year, but other than that, anytime you want. And also just send them to the YouTube page and just go to YouTube and type in Trader Merlin, and they can see the page there, and they'll get an idea what it's all about.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, awesome, John. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm happy you're all situated out there on the East Coast. Hopefully I'll get a chance to see you soon.
Peace.
See you, John. Take care. Guys, that was the Ambassador of Opportunity, John O'Donnell. You might remember him from the Power Trading Radio Show. Of course, he did a ton of classes for Online Trading Academy over the years. Now, relaxing in North Carolina. Those of you who remember John, he really had a lot to do with the Austrian School of Economics and Mises. So we'll hopefully mix it up a little bit by bringing on some of those guys from the Mises Institute. That's really more John's area. I still feel kind of not starstruck, but intimidated by some of the people he brings on the program. I know it's kind of weird, but He brings on some pretty big names. But I think he brought Ron Paul on the program, and not Ross Perot, but Ron Paul was on here once. All right, let's go to your economic calendar for tomorrow. I want to make sure I get through all of this stuff. By the way, there was some great questions. So Abhishek asked about different currency pairs like the Singapore dollar and Swiss dollar. I had a ton of great questions that I will get to on tomorrow's show. Tomorrow I won't have a guest, so I'll just be doing all the show going into these great listener questions. So if I didn't get to your question, don't worry. I didn't forget about it. I'll get to it on tomorrow's show. All right. This is really all we have to look at. This is what's happening for tomorrow. There wasn't a lot noteworthy today. There was an unemployment number, which was actually much better than expected. That was great. Here is the big stuff for tomorrow. For Canada, you have an unemployment rate which is expected to stay just about the same. The U.S. also has an unemployment rate which is expected to drop. Now, I mentioned on the Monday Market Must-Knows for Online Trading Academy on how last week we had an unemployment claims number that was higher than expected, and that may have thrown a monkey wrench in Friday's unemployment numbers. However, today we had unemployment claims that were much lower than expectations, so it was just a 1 week blip in that number. So we'll probably end up coming in line with that expectation of unemployment in the U.S. right around 6.8%. My guess is you might actually see it even lower at 6.7%, but that's just because the feeling of unemployment numbers. You can see non-farm employment change also comes out tomorrow. So that's your major economic data for tomorrow. And yes, I got cannabis stock comments. Yeah, well, we mentioned that one on yesterday's show, and I agree. I think there's a lot more upside potential for that cannabis stock than there is cannabis industry than there is downside potential. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the Ambassador of Opportunity, J.O. John O'Donnell, on the program today. It's always great to see him and get some insights into the market. I do my best to steer this away from anything political because, let's be honest, your political views really don't make a difference in your trading world. It's all about finding opportunities, supply, demand, trends, indicators, whatever, and making trades out there. So hopefully we didn't ruffle any feathers with politic talk today. If you did, apologize. We will steer away from that for tomorrow. So do me a favor, if you like the show, give me a thumbs up. If not, well, that's all right. You can go to TraderMerlin.com and tell me why you didn't like the show or what I can do to make it better. And of course, leave your feedback down below the YouTube video just so I can get those questions all prepped for tomorrow's show. Until then, happy trading, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.